You're watching Reality Check. First, it was the Foreign Ministry that went public to scold international celebrities like Rihanna and Greta Thunberg for tweeting in support of India's farm laws, rather just drawing attention to the ongoing farm protests in India. Then came news that the Delhi police was going to file charges against Greta Thunberg. Fake news? Not quite. It appears that the police has in fact registered an FIR which ranges from charges of sedition to spreading disaffection to promoting hatred against those who authored a document tweeted by Greta Thunberg, the teenage climate change activist. The police claim that the document indicates that there was a deep-seated conspiracy to foment unrest in India and that there are even Khalistani links to it. So what really is this document that Greta Thunberg tweeted, which has now found herself at the center of a possible charge by the Delhi police, no less? We'd actually reported on this document yesterday. She tweeted it and then she's tweeted another document. It's the original toolkit which seems to have got the Delhi police in the flap. And we'd actually reported on it yesterday, and let's just go through it again to understand exactly what it is that the police seem to have found so problematic. Now, this is essentially a protest manual which sets out the playbook for how to carry out these anti-farm protests. It's unclear, by the way, whether Thunberg had anything to do with its authorship or she simply tweeted a document that had been sent to her. Now, it talks about many different strategies for protests. It talks about how you can organize the protests, make videos, call local representatives. It talks about a Twitter storm on the 4th and 5th of February. It also had suggested a plan for Republic Day protests. This toolkit, remember, seemed to predate the Republic Day protests. It asked people to organize local protests in their areas, and it also contained sample tweets of farm protests. The important thing to remember is that it does not or did not in any point advocate violence or any kind of violent unrest. But who's behind it? That's where things get a little complicated. Multiple organizations are mentioned in this protest manual. One of them is a Canadian-based activist group called the Poetic Justice Foundation. And the toolkit linked to the Poetic Justice Foundation's PowerPoint presentation, a PPP. Now, this had several suggestions and points about the protests, including calling for disrupting India's quote-unquote yoga and chai image. Now, the police has claimed that this group, this Poetic Justice Foundation, has Khalistani links. Now, the fact is that this group appears to have been co-founded by an activist and entrepreneur based in Canada called Mo Dhaliwal. Dhaliwal has, in social media posts, expressed sympathies with the Khalistani cause. So that's according to the police, or presumably that's why the police are talking about a Khalistani link to this particular toolkit. Now, as we mentioned, Greta Thunberg subsequently deleted it and she tweeted a new one. She says that the old one was outdated because it was dating back to the Republic Day protests. The newer version is somewhat more sanitized. She claims it's been updated by people on the ground in India. This new toolkit has no reference to the Republic Day protests. It has no template tweets and emails. It doesn't name Poetic Justice or other groups, but it does go on to provide, like the earlier one, suggestions for farm law protests. So that's really where we stand with this perpetually unfolding and frankly bizarre story. Let's go to our panel now. We're joined on the show by Prakash Chandra Sharma, National Vice President of the BJP Kisan Morcha. We have with us Shiv Kumar, also known as Kakkaji, who's President Rashtriya Kisan Mazdoor Mahasangh, one of the farm leaders leading the farm protest, the anti-farm law protest. Joined from London by Sunny Hundal, who's a journalist and writer on Open Democracy. Good to have him as always. Arima Sundaram, senior lawyer, Supreme Court. And joining us from Noida is Vikram Singh, former DGP, Uttar Pradesh. Sunny, let me just start with you. I think it's also important for our viewers to know that you are Sikh, if I'm not mistaken, though that doesn't necessarily entirely define your identity, but you have been also writing about the protests here from that vantage. What do you make of all of this which has happened? Really, I know that many people overseas, Sikh community and others, have been pointing out about these protests, have been drawing attention to it. But it's really the Rihanna and tweets and all of that which has set off this Twitter storm, with essentially the Indian state arguing that there's some sort of deep-seated international conspiracy behind all of this.
Well, I have to say, I think that the Indian government is shooting itself in the foot by its response to Rihanna and Greta Thunberg. And today I saw the story about some Hindu group which is burning effigies of posters of Greta Thunberg and Rihanna. And all it does, I think, is show the extent of extremism that is taken hold in India and the way that these people are trying to, blanket sort of condemn everyone who is siding with the farmers. I mean, this whole conspiracy mongering about Khalistan, no, it's ridiculous. I'm not a Khalistani. I support the farmers. There are lots of Hindus, especially in the UK and around the world, who support the farmers. This is not a campaign around one people or one group. What we're saying is that, farmers are poor people in India, and they should be protected rather than, let big corporations take over. So to my mind, I'm happy with the way the BJP is overreacting to Rihanna and everyone else, because it serves the purpose of showing the extremism to the world.
But Sunny, what would you make of the fact that this particular toolkit or whatever protest manual which Greta Thunberg tweeted, the original version, did have references to this organization, Canada-based, I'm not sure if you've heard of them, we hadn't till this came out, where one of the founders does appear to be a kind of Khalistani supporter?
I mean, this is a very vague link. And, what they're trying to say is that because this one person may have expressed support for Khalistan, that means the entire movement is now tainted by Khalistan. I mean, it's a ridiculous, oversimplification.
Right.
And frankly, if the government wants to go down that route, fine. Let's see it. At the end of the day, the farmers can stand up for themselves. They don't need us to stand up for them.
Okay.
But I do think that the government is completely overreacting, and that's fine. It shoots themselves in the foot.
Right. Vikram Singh, as a senior police official, what do you make of this? I mean, to file an FIR on the basis of a tweet by Greta Thunberg and to say there's an international conspiracy?
On the face of it, Mr. Srinivasan Jain, it does not seem to be okay. But what seems to be okay is the duty of the police and the state to defend itself.
Right.
What seemingly is apparently a very innocuous tweet, it does not seem to be innocuous because there seems to be several organizations, and then the Poetic Justice Foundation appears to be one of them. What did they have to say about the Capitol Hill violence? Nothing. And if they did not have anything to say about other even more significant incidents right across the globe, why single out the farmers' agitation #2? And then to guide, motivate and give a roadmap of how to start a disturbance and how to start an agitation and give it several other dimensions, that is where the problem arises, Mr. Jain. And therefore, I would not want the police in dodging the... Yes, please.
No, I'm saying regardless of why they didn't signal any other international or national dispute is not an offense, right? We're talking here of an FIR that has been lodged. So that's just a matter of their perspective. They may want to raise A or B issue. The important thing, though, as I pointed out, is that this document, at least whatever we saw of it, is not calling for violence. It's simply giving you a manual of how to protest.
Nobody would call for violence. The most dishonorable and the most violent of calls are shrouded in the most pious and sanctimonious calls of Gandhism, non-violence and peace. They are all shrouded in high-sounding moral words. And therefore, I know what I'm talking about. Nobody would say. I mean, you have Muh mein Ram, Bagal mein Churi, as the saying.
But then how do you file an FIR on the basis of a presumption of what? That's what I'm not able to understand.
An FIR is the first step to investigate.
Investigate. Okay. So it's the first step to investigate.
Coming to a conclusion. The first step of investigation, not charging anyone.
Oh, I see. Okay. But at the same time, Prakash Chandra Sharma, I mean, just from the political point of view, as Sunny Undal was saying, that now filing an FIR where you might potentially be investigating Greta Thunberg, isn't this becoming now a sort of a self-goal almost?
Vasu, I would like to highlight 2-3 points. In
Yes.
reality check, like you have given this paranoid state. So I mean, like you just want to take over the democracy by the paranoid way. And as Mr. Sunny
By the what way, sorry?
No, like the democracy, we can't take over with this paranoid.
Paranoid?
Yeah, because you are mentioning somewhere in your this program, I am seeing the highlight over there. So this is very wrong word like you have put it in. We are making the, mockery of our democracy.
No,
And
what
we
am I,
don't
what,
have any
what
right to do
paranoid?
that.
Is the
You should
government
not use
behaving
this kind
is
of
the
words.
government behaving in a paranoid manner? That's the question.
No, government is
it
totally
appears to
not
be
behaving.
in a paranoid manner.
And we see that is the beauty of democracy. Anybody has the right to say anything. And like what Mr. Sunny is saying, I don't know. He's a journalist is fine, but whether he's Indian or not, and what he knows about India and what he knows about the farmers, he don't have any idea. And he's making a comment, and he's saying like the government is extremist. He should just control his way. What happening worldwide, as rightly ex-DGP Mr. Vikram Singh said, what happening in Myanmar, what happening in China, what happening in other countries. We should also rectify that. And what happened with this, the statue of Mahatma Gandhi?
No, once again, what I don't understand, Prakash Chandraji, if some individual sitting anywhere in the world wants to comment on something happening in another part of the world, what is the problem? You can comment on what is happening in America, you can comment on what is happening in Pakistan, and I'm sure you do also. This is, as you said, this is democracy. So to go and first get the foreign ministry to issue letters and then after that to get the Delhi police to file an FIR, doesn't that seem a bit absurd?
See, Vasu, like the prima facie, if you will see the strategy and the propaganda, what is happening right now, it's a well-planned international conspiracy, what we are seeing, and what it has happened.
What are we seeing? What is the evidence of a well-planned international conspiracy? That's what I'm not able to understand. When you talk of propaganda, by the way, what we are seeing is a whole series of cut and paste tweets by Indian celebrities defending the government, or basically talking about how the farm laws are good and India should not fall for propaganda. Is that also a conspiracy? The fact that suddenly everybody from Sachin Tendulkar to Akshay Kumar to Ajay Devgan to Saina Nehwal to BJP ministers are all tweeting the same thing and the same hashtag. I'm saying it would be as absurd to suggest that is some well-planned conspiracy as the other one. No,
it's not a conspiracy. Before celebrity, they are the Indians, and every Indian has the right to protect their sovereignty. What we are doing with our country, with our name, because it's very internal issue, nobody has right to say it. Why you are not mentioning the Mia Khalifa? He also tweeted, and many people of them, like, they have just liked it. So it is very well planned.
So basically, people outside of any country should not tweet about something happening in another country.
From the day 26th of January till 6th of February, what we need to do, she is mentioning and she is making the delay. So obviously it seems like worldwide they are organizing this, the chanda, and they are collecting the money. Like I have also connected with them everywhere in worldwide. I know the people, what they are doing it. What is their
let me ask Prakash Chandra Sharma ji. Prakash Chandra Sharma ji, प्रकाश चंद्र से बात हुई, सॉरी, लेट मी आस्क शिव कुमार जी. शिव कुमार जी, ये जो कहा जा रहा है कि बहुत बड़ी कोई साजिश रची जा रही है, ग्लोबल साजिश, आपके फार्मर्स प्रोटेस्ट को यूज करते हुए कि भारत को हिलाने की बात हो रही है, एफआईआर भी अब ग्रेटा थनबर्ग के खिलाफ शायद रजिस्टर हो सकता है.
देखिए, हमारे लिए देश सबसे पहले है, राष्ट्र हमारे लिए सर्वोपरि है
जी,
और जो हमारे अपनी डिमांड्स हैं वो सरकार के साथ है.
राइट.
हम इस झगड़े को अपने घर के अंदर ही निपटाएंगे.
जी.
बाहर के लोग जो हमको समर्थन दे रहे हैं उनको हम थैंक्स देते हैं, धन्यवाद देते हैं
जी,
क्योंकि उनको उनकी चिंता भी मानव के हिसाब से स्वाभाविक है कि आप कटीले तार लगा दें, इंटरनेट सेवाएं बंद कर दें, पानी की सप्लाई बंद कर दें, नुकीले कांटे लगा दें, लोहे के लगा दें, तो ये कड़कती ठंड में 70 दिन से किसान पड़ा है, तो एक स्वाभाविक प्रक्रिया है, उसके तहत वो लोग अपनी प्रतिक्रिया दे रहे हैं। मगर हमने बार बार कहा है कि हम सबसे पहले राष्ट्रवादी हैं, राष्ट्र से ऊपर कुछ भी नहीं है, और ये झगड़ा जो है किसानों की समस्याएं हैं हमारी सरकार के साथ है, हम आपस में बैठ के तय करेंगे। ये हमने स्पष्ट पहले भी किया है, अभी भी कर रहे हैं, आगे भी करते रहेंगे। मगर ये भी कहेंगे कि जो हमारी पीड़ा से पीड़ित है और वो ट्वीट कर रहे हैं हमारे पक्ष में, उनको हम धन्यवाद देते हैं। किसी प्रकार का कोई षड्यंत्र नहीं है, षड्यंत्र इन लोगों को पहले से ही दिखाई दे रहा है कि इसमें कोई षड्यंत्र है, फॉरेन फंडिंग है, खालिस्तानी है, पाकिस्तानी है, ऐसा नहीं है। किसानों की मांगे हैं, हमारी जो मांगे वो स्पष्ट है, उस मांगों पर सरकार ध्यान दे, उसका हल निकाले, और डायलॉग से हल निकलेगा। डायलॉग करने के लिए हमेशा हम तैयार रहेंगे, आगे भी हैं, अभी भी हैं। जी हाँ,
राइट। Arima Sundaram, as a senior lawyer, what do you make of this? I mean, it's one thing to kind of keep this in the realm of rhetoric and you can have your Twitter wars and all that, but to go ahead and start registering FIRs?
You know, Srinivasan, this is really a very grey area, and I'll explain to you why. You'll be surprised if I'm saying this, but if you give me a moment, I'll explain to you why.
Sure.
The proof of the pudding is in the eating. To protest is democratic.
Right.
It's a foundation of democracy. To protest violently is an anathema to democracy.
Yes.
So let's understand those two. And as I said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. On 26th February,
yes,
the protest was violent, and it is impossible to have been so organizedly violent because earlier it was repeatedly stated it will be a peaceful protest, it will be a peaceful protest.
Sure.
But obviously, there were movements afoot to make it a violent protest. Therefore, the investigation starts with who's behind this violence. Because that violence was abhorrent. I'm sure all of us who may support the farmers' movements, who may not support it, who may support protest,
but you need to
still
get to
feel
who's
that
behind
what happened that day was abhorrent. We need to get to who's behind it. The only way that can be done is through an investigation. Now, therefore, an investigation is necessary. Now, coming to these persons who are out of the country who have been tweeting,
yes,
I fully agree that it is over-publicizing what they're doing by filing this charge sheet, by filing and registering an FIR against them. I think in many ways it can be called an overreaction. But then I looked at why was it being done. You know, I just tried to analyze, saying, look, if you and I can feel it's an overreaction, after all these people are sitting abroad, how does this registering of the FIR affect them in any way? What is going to happen? Is it going to result, even if a charge sheet is filed, in getting them extradited to India? It's not going to happen. So I was also wondering why this was being done. The reason, according to me, is this, that an investigation is afoot as to a violent protest.
Right.
There is an investigation afoot that violence is being used as a means, and we're afraid that it is going to snowball into more violent acts. In which case, we are also afraid that there is funding from any organizations outside the country.
Right.
The reason I think this was done was to in a way, warn these people, other people, and saying, look, just because of your belief in protest and the farmers' cause, you may be, by sending tweets like this, fanning flames of people who want to bring in a violent movement into India. So in a way, by registering such an FIR, at least to stop them from repeating, fanning such flames.
I see.
That seems
so this
to
is a
me
kind of
to be the
warning,
behind it.
a shot across the bow.
I've been trying to analyze why it was done, and this seems to be, to me,
not that,
a reason why this is being done.
Mr. Sundaram, it's actually not that surprising. This is the government standard playbook for everything. No? Everything is a conspiracy, everything is an international conspiracy, everything has a foreign
Look, we
hand.
have no doubt. Srinivasan,
Everything has extreme
let me
elements.
just answer you.
So I'm saying
yes,
in that
while
way.
Saying that, let's understand one thing. That there was an extreme element at play on 26th Republic Day. You and I can't wish it away.
No, of course. And there is an ongoing investigation into it.
There was violence.
By the Delhi police, as there should be.
To say that it is just a governmental imagination that there's an extreme invasion into it is wrong. Because there was. And like I started, I will conclude by saying proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Okay. Just to be clear, I'm not saying there's anything at all wrong with investigating the violence that took place, but to already start coming up with conclusions and to start smearing individuals and groups in broad brushstrokes as is being done is something that I don't think a government or frankly anybody should be getting into until you have concrete evidence. Sunny Handal, you had a point.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I have a few points.
But it's the
Firstly,
FIR which is registered.
There is a
to
lot of
find
good
concrete
reason
evidence.
why people from abroad, especially Sikhs and Punjabis, are interested and fired up about the protest because they have family there in Punjab, they have very close links with what's going on in India, and they have a right to speak. Secondly, on the 7th of January this year, Narendra Modi sent a tweet out saying, distressed to see news about rioting and violence in Washington, D.C., orderly, peaceful of transfer of power must continue. Isn't that Mr. Modi then interfering in U.S. elections and U.S. affairs? In fact, the last time I came on your show, we were talking about how the BJP's arm in the UK was trying to interfere in the UK elections. There have been similar stories about BJP's arm in the United States and in Canada trying to interfere in the local elections.
Sunny Handal, let me just ask you this though, that while you could argue that it's entirely legitimate for the Sikh diaspora to be concerned with what's happening in Punjab, but the fact that you have people like Rihanna tweeting, surely that's not happened out of the blue. What is your take on how something like that could have happened? Were there advocacy groups that approached her? How does that work? In your view?
Well, you know on social media that people are interested in a lot of international issues. For example, last year there was a lot of tweeting around the burning of the Amazon forests. There have been tweets around what's happened in Washington, D.C. with Trump over the last few weeks and months.
Right.
It's actually very common to do this. And for now, the government to turn around and say this is some international conspiracy makes them look like lunatics. It's fine if they want to look like lunatics. That's not a problem for me. But in the international media, in the eyes of the international sort of the audience, they look like complete lunatics who are overreacting to, frankly, teenagers like Greta Thunberg tweeting about something that they feel passionately about, which is not only farmers' protests, but also the environmental and the climate impact of what's going on.
Okay, maybe, lunatics is possibly too strong a word, but Prakash Sharma, what about the point that Sunny Handal is making that, it isn't unusual for people to comment on affairs going on in another country. And this is not even in the case of Rihanna and so on, these are individuals. But here you had the Prime Minister tweeting about the attack on Capitol Hill. You've had the BJP actually campaign in elections in England against Democrat candidates.
Basu, 2 points I would like to make over here. See,
yes,
just making a particular concern on any of the attack and commenting on a particular policy label issue, both are different things. What happened on the Capitol Hill, nobody wanted it. What happened on not on 26th, 29th also what we have seen. What happened near to the Israeli embassy. So we should concern, we are a country of more than...
But then what's the difference? No, my point is, what is the difference? Because if you saw all the tweets by all these people, they're simply saying, why aren't we talking about this? And they tweeted the link to a CNN article.
No, definitely. See, one thing is very clear.
That's what I'm saying. If you just now, earlier you said you can't comment on the affairs of another country. Now you're saying you can comment on an affairs of another country. So what is your position?
2 points are there. Like one attack happens somewhere. Like what happens over there in the Capitol Hill.
Yes.
What other some terrorist attacks are happening. Everybody is concerned. Everybody is taking care about each other. But as far as this farmer bill is concerned, no, it's not like that. That was the reason I just want to explain you. Give me 2 minutes again, please. See, what happened, this is a policy label. India is a vast country. What Sunny is mentioning is fine. Sikhs are all over worldwide. They are concerned because they belong to Punjab. But India is not Punjab. India is Kerala also. Punjab is Jammu and Kashmir also. So we should take about that as well. Number 2, as far as the Rihanna is concerned...
So you want everybody to comment on what is happening in all over India? I don't understand your point.
No, see, India is a vast country. Like the particular group, they are basically from the Punjab. They are making the agitation from the Punjab, and the Sikhs are mainly particular over there. They have a right to speak, but they don't have the right to make the anarchy into the country. They don't have the right to promote the anarchy into the country.
But who is saying that? But who is defending anarchy, sir?
Sir, it is there. Whatever is happening, it is in our...
No, I'm saying who is defending it? Who's
No,
defending
numbers
anarchy?
voting
No one's
farmers
defending
is not
anarchy.
anarchy, by the way.
question being asked is, why would you want to criminalize and attack people who might be tweeting about an issue which they're concerned with? Anyway, I'm told I'm completely out of time,
Vasu,
but I don't see the
let
story
me
going
finish
anywhere
first.
in
Let
a
me
hurry, so
finish
we'll
first.
be back
Vasu.
very soon to talk about this. Prakash Chandji, I'm told I have no time at all, actually. Sorry, I was trying to give you another 10 seconds, but I'm told I'm completely out of time. But thank you all so much for joining me on Reality Check. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.